Hey everyone. I was out on my morning walk this morning.
Oh,
You
yeah.
know, I love to read, get lost in a good article, and
Yeah.
I came across this piece about the future of homeownership,
Uh-huh.
and it really got me thinking.
Mm.
You know, it claims you will own nothing and you will be happy.
Hmm.
Pretty bold statement, right?
Yeah.
It kind of had me wondering, is a future where we're all just renters? Is that really on the horizon? So I brought in an expert to help us unpack all of this
Okay.
and uh, and see what it all means for you.
Well, it's definitely a thought-provoking idea, and the author brings up some really interesting points about how that traditional path to building wealth through homeownership, it seems to be fading away.
Yeah, they talk about how inheritance is changing, right? Like our parents or grandparents.
Mm.
Many of them, they inherited a home,
Yeah.
gave them a real leg up.
Yeah. It was a different time.
Yeah.
Back then, the family home was often the key to building generational wealth. But the author points out that for a lot of millennials and Gen Z, that's just not the reality anymore.
Right.
They're facing sky-high housing prices and student debt, and a system that often feels stacked against them.
Hmm.
So you're seeing that traditional path to wealth, that multi-generational homeownership ladder, becoming less and less accessible.
Yeah.
Makes you wonder, what's the new path?
Yeah. It's a big shift, that's for sure.
Big shift.
And the author even shares this personal story about inheriting a home that was actually burdened with debt.
Oh, wow.
Totally flipping the script on that whole inheritance is a financial boost idea.
Yeah, that anecdote really highlights how the dynamics are changing.
Yeah.
Older generations might be spending those assets down,
Right.
while the younger generations are left dealing with the consequences.
Okay, so we've got this backdrop of rising housing costs and the traditional inheritance path is fading away.
Right.
But then the author throws in this, you will own nothing and you will be happy,
Mm-hmm.
which is connected to the World Economic Forum, right?
Right.
What's the deal with that?
That phrase has definitely sparked a lot of debate. And the author seems to believe that this shift toward a renter society is not just happening by chance,
Mm-hmm.
but that powerful forces are intentionally pushing us in that direction.
So it's like a conspiracy theory.
Well, not necessarily a conspiracy, but the author suggests that large corporations are buying up more and more property,
Okay.
essentially squeezing individuals out of the market and pushing them towards a life of renting.
And that's where they bring up this feudalism 2.0 concept.
Right.
Sounds intense.
It's a bold comparison for sure.
Yeah.
Think back to feudalism.
Mm-hmm.
A small elite controlled the land and everyone else worked for them.
Right.
The author is arguing that we're seeing a modern version of that where corporations are the new lords,
Right.
owning vast amounts of property and pushing individuals towards a life of renting. It's a system where a few hold most of the power and resources and the majority are essentially dependent.
Right.
The author seems to think that we're headed down that path.
Okay, so that's a bit unsettling. But
Yeah.
the author doesn't just leave us with this doom and gloom scenario.
Right.
They actually offer some suggestions for how we can push back against this.
Yeah,
Right.
The author encourages finding alternative paths,
Okay?
like moving to rural areas where land might be more affordable, focusing on self-sufficiency,
Okay.
things like growing your own food, learning essential skills,
Right.
basically becoming less reliant on the system.
So kind of like a back to basics approach.
Yeah, like a back-to-basics approach.
Ah, interesting. But it's not just about economics.
Right?
The author also talks about a broader loss of freedom
Yeah.
that they see happening in society.
Yes. The author talks about how their generation, Gen X, grew up with a certain level of freedom
All right.
that seems to be shrinking for younger generations.
Yeah.
They mention more rules, more regulations, and less room for individuality.
Yeah, that makes sense.
Huh.
Imagine growing up knowing that you'd likely inherit your family home,
Right.
a real safety net. Now, imagine that option disappearing. That's the reality that many are facing today.
Yeah.
It does make you wonder about the implications for personal freedom.
Absolutely. It raises questions about what it means to be free in a world where fewer people own assets and more people are reliant on large corporations or institutions.
Right.
The author doesn't provide easy answers, but they definitely get you thinking.
And then just when you think it can't get any weirder,
Right.
the author throws in this idea of artificial happiness. What's that all about?
Well, that's where the author ventures into some pretty speculative territory.
Okay.
Imagine a future where instead of chasing fulfillment, we just pop a pill for instant contentment.
Wow.
They question whether that's true happiness or just a manufactured feeling,
Right.
something imposed on us rather than something we achieve.
It's like a sci-fi movie come to life, and not necessarily in a good way.
Yeah,
It's a bit freaky to think about.
it definitely raises some ethical questions.
Yeah.
Like if happiness can be chemically induced, what happens to our motivation to pursue our goals, our passions, those things that give life meaning?
Right. It makes you wonder if we're losing something essential in the process.
Yeah.
This whole article is a bit of a roller coaster, going from practical concerns about home ownership to these really deep philosophical questions about freedom and
Well,
happiness.
that's the point, isn't it?
Yeah.
To spark a conversation, to get us thinking about the direction that we're heading in as a society. The author might not have all the answers,
Right.
but they're prompting us to consider the implications of these trends and to explore alternative paths.
I'm curious what stood out to you the most from all of this.
I think what's most important is recognizing that we have agency. We're
Mm.
not just passive passengers on this ride.
Right.
We have the power to make choices that shape our lives and influence the world around us.
Okay.
Whether it's exploring alternative living arrangements, seeking financial literacy, or advocating for policies that promote individual autonomy, there are steps we can take.
So it's about being informed, being engaged, and being proactive.
Yeah.
Not just accepting the way things are,
Yeah.
but looking for ways to create the future we want to see.
Exactly. It's about acknowledging the challenges, yes, but also embracing the opportunity to create solutions.
Yeah, it really is about taking ownership of our future. And this all goes back to what we were talking about earlier, right? Inheritance, home ownership, freedom. It's all connected.
Absolutely. And when that traditional path of building wealth through homeownership and passing it down starts to crumble, it really forces us to ask some tough questions, like how do we create a future where everyone has a fair shot at a good life?
Yeah. It makes you wonder if we need to start thinking outside the box, right? Like
Hmm.
maybe the old model isn't working anymore and
Yeah,
we need some fresh ideas.
exactly. If those old paths to wealth are becoming less accessible, we need to get creative.
Mm.
Maybe it's about exploring new models of ownership or investing in community-based solutions.
Right.
Maybe technology can play a role in building a more equitable system.
Yeah, it's like we're standing at a crossroads. And the choices we make now will have a huge impact on what the future looks like.
Yeah.
Not just for us, but for our kids and grandkids.
That's a powerful thought, and it highlights why these conversations are so important. You know, we need to question the status quo, challenge old assumptions, and be open to new possibilities. We may not have all the answers right now,
Right.
but by asking the right questions and working together, I think we can create a future that's more equitable, sustainable, and fulfilling for everyone.
So for you listening out there, here's something to chew on. If that traditional dream of owning a home and passing it down is fading, what are your options? What steps can you take today to build a life that feels secure and fulfilling, even in a world that's constantly changing?
Keep those questions in mind as you continue to explore these issues. Remember, the future isn't predetermined. It's something that we build day by day through our choices and actions.
I think that's a great note to end on. Thanks for joining us for this deep dive. Until next time, keep learning, keep questioning, and keep pushing for a better tomorrow.